Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Going to give people just a few more seconds here to join us. As we go through the various features of the Dash platform, feel free to use the chat to ask any questions you have. I should be able to see those questions and either go back to the feature or cover the feature in more depth as questions come up. But let's go ahead and get started. So you should be seeing here the Dash login page, and that's at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also navigate there from the virtualpbx.com website. If you mouse over support, you'll have a link there to the Dash login page. To log in, you do need your username, which is your email address, your password, which should have been emailed to you, and then lastly, the account name, which is typically your company name. If for some reason you forgot your password or you didn't get the email, down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, that's where you have the forgot your info link. And then we still need your email address, and then we need either the account name or a phone number on the account. Right? One or the other, we don't need all three. And then you click on reset password. This will send you an email with a link inside of it that you would then click on to get logged in to change your password. Now, once you've changed your password, the system will log you back out, basically making you log back in with a new password, but it also that means that you have an opportunity here to click on remember me. So one less password you have to have memorized. And then you click on a login or sign in. Now, I'm using a test account that's been around for 6 years or so. So it automatically takes me here to the dashboard page. The first time you log in, it's actually going to take you to your account information, which you can get to by clicking on your name here at the top. And you have your user information is where it starts you off at. So this is where you would change your own email address for login, as well as your own password for login. Right? This is important, especially since you're an admin. The other thing you see over here towards the settings column is the account. And the main thing that's often changed here is the time zone. Now, if for some reason you decide to change the account name, that's something you do want to notify us about, specifically our billing team. There's several things they need to change on their side to make sure everything matches up properly. Also on your accounts below where it says user, you'll have additional section here called for billing information. This is where you would update your credit card information. You can see your service plan. You could update who the primary contact is for billing issues. When you're done with everything in this area, right, so either the account name, user, or the billing area, you click close over here to the top right, and that will take you back to our dashboard. So up the top, again, you click on your name, that takes you to that account section. For many of you, you'll have a D&D toggle here, right? D&D stands for do not disturb. If it's white, that means it's active, right? So you're on in do not disturb mode. If it's black, that means it's not active. The reason I don't have it is my user is also an agent in an ACD queue. So if you, for any of your staff members who are part of ACD queues, they will not have that D&D toggle. That's just to avoid problems with interactions with the queue. Then we got the little question mark icon. You've got chat with us. This will open up a chat window so you can speak to our support staff and they can walk you through a given feature that you're working on. Then you've got the online store. This takes you to store.virtualpbx.com where you can order things like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. To learn more, this will take you to the support pages on the virtualpbx.com site so you can see specific guides on a feature you're looking at with screenshots. Some of the guides also have a YouTube link for that specific feature. And you may see here a link for the web phone. Now that only shows up once you've added a web phone to your user. And usually it's the next login. It could take a little while for the server to update. That simply opens up a tab to webphone.virtualpbx.net. So that allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls using your internet connection. Got that little three horizontal line icon or hamburger icon. This takes you to other features of Dash. Some of them, like I mentioned, ACDQs, but some of these features do have fees associated with them or are on specific plan types. So I'll try to make sure to call those out. And then we got the little log out icon. Here, this shows that we're on the dashboard, right? So it's your main screen to start off with. These are other core features of Dash that we'll be getting through. And then here we got total users. I have 21. Depending on your plan, adding users may increase your bill, so that's something to be aware of. Basically, if you're on a per user plan, adding a new user will increase your bill. You can check on the pricing page, which will have the most current pricing or the most current plans. If you're on an older plan or it doesn't the features that are included don't match up to your specific account, then you would want to talk to our account services team, and they can verify what your pricing is. Total devices, I have 49, and this is then broken down. First up, we have Softphone. Right, Softphone is simply a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Right, traditionally started off on computers. It has since migrated to mobile devices, tablets, cell phones, etc. This can include the VirtualPBX Softphone app, both on your computers or on your cell phones. But this also can be for a third-party application. So if you get a Softphone application from a company called Counterpath, that would be listed here, be part of this total. Next up, we've got cell phone. That's pretty self-explanatory. Then we've got the web phone, right? So making use of Chrome or Firefox. And the web phone is technically a type of soft phone. It was developed later, and it's currently, as far as I know, there's no charge for the web phone on any plans. So that's why that's separated out. Then we have SIP phone. So SIP is a kind of physical VoIP phone, right? So VoIP is what we're dealing with mostly here. So that's Voice over Internet Protocol. That's what VoIP stands for. SIP is a subtype, right? It's a particular protocol that these phones will use. So if you're shopping, you want to make sure the phones you get are SIP compliant or compatible. And then we have landline, which is also pretty self-explanatory. Notice down here, I have 23 unregistered devices. This is for your VoIP phones, right? So Dash will know when a VoIP phone is connected, registered, or not, or unregistered. So it's telling me that I have 23 devices that I can't send calls to. This could be something as simple as someone hasn't logged into their Softphone application yet, right? Or they haven't plugged in their VoIP phone at their house, right? It could be more complicated, right? It could be they got a new router and now their phone isn't connecting. You know, it could be something like an ISP is having a major issue. Next up, we have total phone numbers. I have 32. Your plans include anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. I'm obviously above that, so I'm paying an overage for each additional phone number. You're going to want to check your plan to know what your overage is. I know on some of the older plans, it could vary from $1.99 to $9.99 depending on the plan and how old the plan was for each extra phone number. Then we have a breakdown here. The first breakdown is assigned numbers and spare numbers. So an assigned number means you're using it, right? It goes someplace, right? It's one of those main numbers you see to the top right. It could be a number that goes directly to one of my salespeople, goes to my billing team, it can go to my support team, whether that's a group or an ACDQ. Right? Spare number on my account, so it still counts towards my allotment, right? So if I'm over, I'm paying for numbers I'm not using. And that's exactly what a spare number is. It's a number I'm not currently using. It doesn't go anywhere right now. This could be because I had a promotion that ended and I just said, okay, we're not taking any calls on that number now because we don't want calls for a promotion that's no longer running. It could be that I got 10 numbers in a block in sequence and I just haven't gotten to those last numbers yet. All right, the other breakdown I have here is US DID and US toll-free. Toll free is actually US Canada toll free, right? It's an 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. And USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So you can have a number in Dallas, Texas, Miami, Florida, Elmira, New York, Chicago, etc. You can also have excuse me, international phone numbers. If you're interested in adding an international number, you're going to want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. And they'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. There may be additional requirements, and the porting team will let you know what those are. That's based on what that country's telecommunications or regulatory service dictates. Right? It's not something we control. So some will require like proof of presence, like a utility bill. Others want like proof of incorporation, etc. Conference Bridge, I have 8 of them. That means I've enabled conferencing as a user feature on 8 of my users. So these 8 people can host or moderate a conference. Over here, back to the top right, we've got my main numbers. So these 4 numbers all behave the same way. They're all going to go to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting, for example. Next, we got my conference number. This is the number everybody dials into to go in to join a conference. Right? So those 8 people who host a conference, they would dial this number, as well as like any vendors or customers would be joining. And you can have multiple conference numbers. The fax box number, you can have one. This enables faxing on your account. This is your inbound fax number. Then we've got the company directory. This downloads a text file to your computer. This basically has your users and their extension numbers. So if people like a printout of everyone's extension numbers, they can have that. The soft phone directory, that's this thing right here. This downloads a file that is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would upload the file then to the soft phone app, and it allows you to see the presence of your coworkers on the soft phone, right? So I could bring up my soft phone and I could see my coworkers as part of my contact list. And if they're green, or actually their phone icon is green, that lets me know they're not on a call. Whereas if they're red, that means they're on a call. So I know who I can call and who I can't. Next up, we've got a store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our web store. And then down here at the bottom is the account realm. This is used in a couple things. It's used to program a third-party soft phone. It's one of the 3 key pieces of information you would need. And the other thing it's used is for outbound faxing. So on Dash, in terms of faxing out, you would need to create an email, right? It uses an email address that you use for your login. In the to field of that email, you put the +sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number that you're faxing to, right? The @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you attach a PDF or TIFF file, and then you click send. You don't need to type in the body of the email or even in the subject line, because the system just looks at the to field, right? The first part to know where it's sending a fax to, the account realm, so it knows where it's coming from, and then it grabs the first attachment it sees and sends that. So you can only send 1 attachment per email. All right, up here at the top, you've got caller ID. This is your main company caller ID or default company caller ID. This pull down will show you all of your main numbers. My streaming software sometimes doesn't allow the pull downs to work. Then you've got your company caller ID name or CNAME. This you have up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters that you can enter here. And once you click on Save Changes down here at the bottom, this gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME, and they update their servers. That process can take up to 3 business days, because we can't control how quickly other companies update their information. And that is what's called provisioning your CNAME information. That's what we can control. So when you pick up a VoIP phone, make an outbound call, that's the information that we send out, right? We would, by default, send out this phone number here at the top, and then your company caller ID name. Now, your calls can route through carriers who don't support CNAME. So if that happens, that means your CNAME information doesn't get to your destination that you're calling to. Not a lot we can do about that. The other thing to keep in mind about CNAM is that the carrier that's hosting the device that's receiving your call has ultimate control about what shows up on their devices on their network. So if they choose not to show the CNAM, we can't do anything about that. If they have some other information that comes up, right? So like your cell phone providers sometimes say spam risk or telemarketer, right? That's a cell phone provider putting that in. You would have to contact that cell phone provider, assuming it's your cell phone provider, to say, hey, this is my company's number, please don't call it a spam risk. And hopefully they can work with you on that. Next, we've got the company emergency information. You just want to put your address that's associated with this phone number. Each phone number can have a different address associated with it, and that means you can have different addresses associated to your various VoIP phones. So that way, when people pick up their VoIP phone and dial 911, the correct address will be transmitted to emergency services. Hold music. So on Dash, hold music is defined as after a call has reached a user, and then they have pressed hold on their VoIP phone. And that's when a hold music will play. And you can upload your own file. You just need to find it on your computer. Dash will play back .mp3, .wav, or .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. And in fact, having it recorded mono versus stereo will save you some file size. Not quite half. But then you would find the file on your computer. You would then click on the blue and white upload arrow icon. Once it finishes uploading, then you would click on Save Changes. And then by default, this would be the hold music for all of your users when they press hold on their VoIP phones. All right, hours is actually part of main number. And instead of skipping around in main number, I'm just going to go to main number and work our way down. All right, so at the top, we have your main company numbers. If you decide you no longer want to use a number as a main number, you can click Unassign. And that just makes it a spare number now. Right, if you need to add numbers, you can either add from your spare number list, assuming you have numbers to choose from. Right, and you just click on the box and then click on Add Selected Numbers. Or you can click on Buy New Numbers, and then you have your option of local or toll-free. If you click on local, you need to know the area code that you want to add a number in. Let's go with 775. That's in Northern Nevada. So then you get a list of numbers to choose from. You just click Add Number. You see here it's added to my cart. It repeats the number. I have the option here to remove it if I decide I don't want it. In most locations, you can add multiple numbers at once. So like I can add this second number here. Then I click on Buy Numbers. The system is verifying first that those numbers were truly available. And then says it goes yes, then it's adding them and activating them to your account. And then you see here, I've added those two numbers. For toll-free, a little bit easier in terms of you just choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You click search and you find the number. Again, same process, you would add it, click Buy Numbers. Oops, I'm over-clicking. Now each phone number has a little gear icon here, so you can set up the individual caller ID for each of your phone numbers, as well as turn on the ability to have the inbound CNAM information be transmitted to your users. And then you would click on Save Changes. You also have the E911, right? So I can put a specific address for this 775 number I added. And then you have prepend. Prepend is for your VoIP phone users. You can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on their VoIP phones, so that gives your staff members an idea of what the call might be about. All right, next up, we got office hours strategy. You can be open 24-hour open office, or you can have custom office hours. If you do that, just put a check mark for each day of the week that you're open, and then include your open hours in these boxes here to the right under 24-hour or military time. I don't know if it shows up properly on YouTube, but at the very bottom you also have the option to say if you're closed for lunch, and then you would include your lunch hours. And then you would click on Save Changes. Then we've got office holidays. Put a check mark if you're closed for holidays. And then over here to the right, you have add holidays. And then you've got your options for a single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of those creates a new row. So single day is like what I have here for President's Day. So you just give it a name, then you choose the month and the date, and then you would click on Save Changes. Right, for date range, it's like I have up here for Christmas, I choose the start date of December 23rd, end date of December 26th, and then I click on Save Changes. Now notice that there's no year indicator here, so you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Right, you want to keep those as single day holidays. And then lastly, the advanced option is like I have here for retreat. I'm just saying, hey, the first Friday in July, that's a holiday, right? Company picnic day. You choose the month. You choose, in this middle one here, 1st through 5th, as well as last. And then the day of the week. And then you would click on Save Changes for any that you add. All right, then we got incoming call handling. Notice I've got tabs here across the top. So I've got open hours, I have my lunch hours, I have after hours, and then I have my holidays. Right? They all have the same basic options here where, and we'll start here. The first one, call comes in, it's going to the virtual receptionist. This is a link. So I'll go ahead and click on that. Now this shows here on the left is my main menu, right? This is what people can press on their phone to navigate through my phone system. Down here at the bottom, you click on Add Route. And this first pull down, you have 0 through 9, as well as the star key to choose from. And then you can, this other pull down, you can choose other options. I'll go up here. So, Smart Directory, right? So people can dial by name. You can send it to a specific person, right? So one of your users. I can send it to one of my call queues, right? This is an ACD queue. This is a paid feature. So that's not all of you would have that as an option. I can send it to a specific device. That means I'm sending it to a specific phone. Don't always recommend that, just because if that phone doesn't have a voicemail option, then the call can end rather abruptly for your inbound caller. Next up, there's a media file, so you can have a greeting file play. Now, once that greeting file ends, the call will end as well. So not always the greatest option. Scroll down. Groups, these are ring groups. These are like departments. These are actually included as part of your normal plan, so you can have these without issue. But basically you're ringing multiple people, either at once or in sequence. Advanced call flows, this would show up if you're making use of what's called submenuing, right? It's like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Those two options go to their own menus, so they have their own greetings, etc. And then you have the option to a specific voicemail box. Now, if you decide you no longer want a particular route, you just click on the X at the far right, and that will remove it from the system after you click on Save. Over here, we have on the right, we start off with greetings, right? So this is where you say, thank you for calling, but also where you give your inbound callers instructions, right? What to press. So text-to-speech, you just type in what you want to say. You have between 250 and 350 characters to work with. It will depend on how complicated you make the greeting. I typically recommend text-to-speech for people who have never used a PBX system before, or they're on a startup company, right? So they're not sure exactly how they're going to want things to go. There's no charge for text-to-speech greeting. The one thing to keep in mind is each time you click update and then save and save changes, when the system saves your text-to-speech greeting, it uses the same file name for each version, right? So it'll say main open hours menu TTS as the file name. So what I recommend is when you type up a new text-to-speech greeting after you've clicked save and save changes, you'll want to go to the greetings manager, change the name of the file to something that you'll recognize or that's at least identifiable to you. So that way if you need to switch back to it, you can do so easily. All right, you can upload your own file. Again, just like the hold music, you can use .wav, .mp3, .ogg, under 1 megabyte, recorded in mono. Look at this MP3 file. and then you would simply click update to upload it, and then save and save changes. Choose from an existing recording. This will be a pull down showing all of your various media files, right? Whether it's a voicemail greeting, a main greeting, what have you. They will show everything that you can choose from. Then you would click on update and save changes. Recorded over the phone. So this, it says pick up a phone, register the account. By default, what that means, it's a VoIP phone on your account. It's like a soft phone, right? Or a physical VoIP phone. Now, if you don't want to do that, right? Like you just want to use your cell phone, then under settings, you want to make sure this one here, allow outside recording, is turned on. This will allow you to call in with a cell phone or landline to record over the phone. And then it mentions a PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So it only works during my main open hours, right? So if I call in after hours, this PIN number will not work, right? And the reverse would be true, right? My after hours PIN number does not work when my system is in open hours. Last thing to keep in mind, so for new accounts, when you first call in, right, the system will tell you no greeting has been recorded for this menu, in which case it prompts you to enter the PIN number. For an account that's already established, or you already have a greeting in place, right, when the main greeting will play when you first connect, you can enter that PIN number as soon as you hear your main greeting play. However, when you do that, right, you're going to record a new greeting. That the current greeting that played when you called in, greeting file A, we'll call it, will get, the content will be overwritten with what you record over the phone. The file name stays the same. The reason I bring that up is in case you have a main or your typical main greeting for most of the year, right? You want to make sure you keep that so that way you can get back to it when it's not like for a special promotion or a holiday. Right, then we've got professional recording services. When you click order down here, this will take you to another website hosted by Snap Recordings, who we've partnered with. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have various versions of English and Spanish and French, so you can do multilingual readings. They also have hold treatment, right, music file and a greeting. They handle their own billing via credit card, and they have their own pricing, which I believe, yeah, we mentioned here, it's $50 for every 75 words. And then they deliver to you via email, so then you would just simply upload your own file. All right, settings. So first we got a number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right, so this, in this case, I'm saying they can make 2 mistakes, which means they have a total of 3 attempts, right? Because they call in, they hear the greeting, and then they press 7, because that's not a valid option, right? So the system will say that's an invalid entry, replay the greeting, then they hit 8. Well, that's their second mistake, right? Greeting plays again. This is the 3rd time, right, that they're hearing the greeting, and they need to play a correct option. If not, right, so let's say they hit 9, right, then the system in this case will end the call. Say, invalid entry, or we did not recognize your entries, says thank you, goodbye. Now, if I add a route and I leave it as a default route, on that last attempt, then the system would send them to the smart directory in this case. All right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press, right? So that inbound caller, they press 7. The system's going to wait to a count of 10, right? So 10 seconds. And then it says, oh, you're done, and then give that invalid entry message. I usually recommend taking this down to like 3, give or take. Then we've got allow outside recording, right? So that's if you want to be able to record your main greeting with a cell phone or landline. This by default, this is actually set to off, right? As a security feature. All right. Allow dialing extensions. If this is off, that means your inbound callers can only press a menu option to navigate through your phone system, right? Versus if you turn it on, now when they get to your main greeting, if they know the extension number, they can enter it, and the system will then send them to that extension. And then suppress playing of invalid entry. So by default, this is on, right? So when someone hits a bad menu option, the system will tell them, right? If you turn this off, that means it won't tell them that they made a mistake, but it will play the greeting again. Now, any changes you make under main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you need to click save here at the bottom. All right, takes you back to that incoming call handling section. You need to click save changes here as well. Right, so you're clicking save twice. All right, next option, call comes in, I'm offering it to Aaron. If he doesn't pick up, it goes to the virtual receptionist. All right, this is a pull down, so I can select any specific user. If I scroll down, I can go to one of my call queues. I can send it to a specific device. I can send it to a media file. I don't recommend the media file in this case because it could confuse your inbound caller, right? Because they'll have this initial media file play, and then whatever media file you set up as the main greeting under the virtual receptionist. So that can be confusing. You can also send it to a ring group. You can send it to one of your advanced call flows. Typically, when people do this, they use something like the operator group. And so whatever option you send it to, the system will try to send it to them for 20 seconds, right? So in this case, I'm sending it to a group of people for 20 seconds. If those people aren't able to pick up, then I get sent to this virtual receptionist. And it's the same virtual receptionist we were just looking at because we're still under open hours. Third option here, again, sending it to a user. Again, you can send it to a media file, a group, a call queue, a device, or other users. You also have one additional option at the very bottom, right here, skip to voicemail, where basically you're saying, hey, send callers, I'm sending it to this voicemail box. And again, you can choose any voicemail box on the account. This particular setup where it says skip to voicemail, I often, or most often see under holidays for a small business. This last option here is sending it to one of my advanced call flows. In this case, this is a secondary attendant, which we'll be getting to shortly. Now, you have these same options for these other times of day. But you notice that the virtual reception is going to be different for my lunch hours, right? So you can have a different greeting play. You can have completely different routing, right? But obviously you'd probably want a different greeting for your after hours to let people know, hey, you're calling us outside of our normal business hours. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers, right? So you can add from spare or buy new numbers. You can also have a custom text-to-speech greeting, even if you don't have a text-to-speech greeting in place, right? So if I disable this, when people call in the conference number, the system still automatically says welcome to the conference, and then it prompts them to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. And once you've assigned a conference number, then you can enable the conference feature on your specific users. The main fax box number, you can have the one main fax box number. This enables faxing on the account. Unfortunately, on this account, the fax box, or the main fax box, does not work properly. But on your accounts, when you click Edit Fax Box, it will open up a new window with two fields. The first field is to enter an email address for inbound notifications. This is so when you get a fax getting sent to your system, that's the email address that the system will send the fax to, basically via PDF file. One thing to keep in mind, if someone dials your fax box number, right, they hear the fax tones and they hang up, right, they hit the wrong number, you still will likely get an email saying you had a failed inbound fax attempt. So just something to keep in mind that could happen. The second field under the Edit Fax Box is for your outbound permissions. So you could put a specific email address there, but you can also put your company domain, right? So like if you own at abccleaners.com and all your staff members have an email address that ends that way, you could put the @ abccleaners.com. Then anybody at your company can send a fax out with the proper format, right? Create an email, +1, area code and phone number, @ account realm, and sending out a PDF or a TIFF. They don't have to be a user on your Dash account. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to do a couple different things. So as I've alluded to earlier, this allows you to do sub-menuing when you have one for English, two for Spanish. But the more common use that we see is for people making use of multiple businesses on the same Dash account. Right? These businesses would have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings, but the calls will be offered to the same staff members. Right? So you have a cleaning business and a dog walking business, right? They'd have two very different greetings, but you can have the same staff people answer calls for both companies. So you up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number, and then click on Create Attendant. When you click on a name of an existing attendant, you have the option here for available in main menu, or unavailable in this case. So if it's unavailable in main menu, that means it's a standalone attendant, meaning, or the typical use, that means this is a standalone business. If I go down here, you see that this one is available in main menu. So this is a sub-menu option, right? So it can show up under my virtual receptionist options. It can show up under any of these other attendants, right? It's meant to be a secondary or an option for one of these other main attendants, right? Now your attendants can have their own phone number or multiple, right? You can add from spare, buy new. You can also click on here for extensions. The extensions, typically your customers won't know about these, but your staff members could know about them. So they could transfer calls to the correct auto attendant if a call got to the wrong place. And then you got the little wrench icon here under settings. You notice I have open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. These times, right, so your open hours, it's going to match what we set up under main number. Same with the holidays, right? Anything time-wise that was set up under main number, it's going to apply to your secondary attendance. So if you have a business that's, you know, open 7 days a week, and you have other businesses that are only open 5 days a week, you're likely not going to be able to have them on the same account. It's possible you could. That would require what's an advanced configuration. So you want to talk to our account services team to find out if you can put them all on the same account. There might be a one-time setup fee for that, or if you need to set up separate accounts. But here you've got the virtual receptionist, right? It's what we were just looking at. You set up your various routes, you set up your greetings, as well as your individual settings, and you would click on save, and then save changes. Now you only have the option for all of these to only send them to the virtual receptionist. Right, so if you need the other options, like, you know, sending it, offering it to a live operator, it needs to either be under your main number or it needs to be a separate account. All right, devices shows all your devices on the account. Green means it's registered / connected, right? So we can send a call to it. Red means it's not registered, so we can't send a call to it. Again, that could be someone's not logged in, or not, the device isn't plugged in. It could be more complicated. And then down here, black, that indicates you've turned it off. Now at the top, you can add devices. First option here, SIP phone. That's that physical VoIP phone, right, sitting on someone's desk. And you've got these manufacturers to choose from. Now, the number of models available will vary, right? Obahai only has a few, whereas like Yealink has a bunch. Right, so you find your manufacturer, find the phone model that you're working with, and you can also try ones that are like really close to it numerically speaking, or model, have close model numbers. Then you give it a device name, and then you enter the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone, often a sticker on the back of the phone, or the base station if it's got a cordless element. Or if the phone's plugged in, usually under basic settings or the main menu, there'll be a heading for MAC, and it'll have the information that you need to enter here. Once you've entered the name and the MAC address, you click on Create Device. And in terms of the dashboard, the only other thing you need to do from the device is assign it to a user. However, on the phone, you need to log into the phone's web user interface, right, the web UI, and then you need to enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go to this web page, and when it does so, it will get its config file, it will download it, it will reboot a couple times, typically, and then after it's done doing that, right, it applies its config file, it will show up as a green device. Now, for the specifics of that URL, and like where to look for on your phone's UI. If you go to the virtualpbx.com page, homepage, go to support. On the right-hand side, it's probably about a third of the way down, under VoIP phones, there is a document there called Auto Provisioning Phones. You want to open that up. It's going to have screenshots of the various phone manufacturers and tell you the exact format of that URL to enter in. That will also often typically have you verify a couple other settings just to make sure they match properly. But then after that, the phone should, again, reboot those couple times and then show up as a green device. All right, cell phone and landline are basically the same. You just click on add the particular device, you give it a name, and then you, under the number field here, you put +1 area code and phone number, and then you'll click on create device. Now, one thing that's different about when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or a landline, right? Those phones will ring, and if you're under advanced, I'm looking at options here, this is the default setup. When you answer that call on your cell phone, for example, the system will tell you, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. Right? When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Whereas when the system sends a call to a VoIP phone, it just rings, you pick up, and you're talking. Now, that pressing 1 doesn't work for every situation. For instance, let's say you're actually sending calls to an automated answering service for your after-hours calls. Well, that automated answering service can't press 1. It doesn't know when to do so, doesn't have fingers, however you want to explain it. It can't press 1. So what you would want to do is here under these advanced options, click the box in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. What this does is you no longer have to press 1 to accept the call, right? We send the call to this phone number, we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right, so for your automated answering service, that's perfect. That's exactly what it needs. It can then handle the call. If this is going to your cell phone, however, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we still treat that like a connected call, so that inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people love that, some people hate it. So that's something to be aware of. Another thing that can come up is this second option here, keep original caller ID. So customer Mary is calling you through your system, it rings to your cell phone, and you see her phone number on your cell phone's display, you don't recognize it. Like me, if you're like me at all, you've probably been getting a lot of these auto warranty robo-dialers, so you just like, I don't know the number, I'll let it go to voicemail. Right, then hopefully you can connect with Mary later to complete the sale. But if you uncheck this option here, right, so now you're not keeping the original caller ID, instead of customer Mary's phone number showing up, we go back to the dashboard here. Under the main caller ID, this company phone number, right? So one of your main numbers shows up on your cell phone's display. So that lets you know, oh, this is a work call. Let me go ahead and answer it. All right, soft phone. On the devices page, you always get this little warning message. I do recommend that you read this at least once. Basically, it's a warning about wireless VoIP technology in E911. But when you close that, the system will default this to a third-party soft phone, right? So you're using a soft phone application from, say, Counterpath, right? Or you're using this to program a VoIP phone that didn't show up under that SIP phone list. So you'd still give it a name. You would copy and paste the SIP username, right? And then when you click on the SIP password box, then you would see the SIP password, so you can copy and paste that. And then you also have the realm, which you would want to copy and paste that. Right, click on create device. And then you'd use those pieces of information to program your third-party soft phone. For adding the VirtualPBX soft phone, you need to do that on the users page. So, and the web phone is also easier to do on the users page. All right, so next up is the greetings manager. This shows your greetings on your account. Up here at the top, you can add or upload a new greeting, right? You just give it a name, find it on your computer, and then you would click on create greeting. It will upload it and add it to this list. On this list, you have the name of the file. You have the source, right? So upload means you uploaded the file. TTS means it's text to speech. And recording means you recorded over the phone. You have the option here to download any of these files, which means you can then listen to them to see if they're relevant. And then if you click on the little wrench icon, you can change the file name, or you can just delete it if you no longer need it. Groups, also referred to as ring groups. These are departments. Right now, ring groups are included as part of your standard plans. Up here at the top, that's where you would add a group. You give it a name and an extension number, and you click and drag everyone you want to be in that group, and you would click on create group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. You can always change the name, and then you've got the group call attempts. And there's little arrows here to the right. I don't know how clearly that shows up on YouTube, but you can change that number of attempts. Basically, this is how many times the inbound caller is offered to your staff members. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, if you click on the members box here, along the top, I've got timestamps. This last one you can edit. So by default, a new group is set to 120 seconds. This one was changed to 240. And then you see here are my staff members that are in the group, and I'm offering these calls to these people in order. Now, if I want to change the order, I can click and drag a person's name. All right, change the order around. Now, right now, the call order would still start with Jean because she's the one listed first. But if I click distribute, now Michael's the first person getting the call. These are sliders. So I can click and drag these, and instead of having them go in order, oops, helps if I don't drag the user. But instead, what I'm going to do here is have it ring everybody for the same amount of time, right? So now it's just whoever picks up the call first gets the call. One thing to keep in mind about ring groups. Ring groups, you can answer calls with a cell phone, landline, or VoIP phone. Right. Versus ACD queues, currently you can only answer calls on a VoIP phone. If a user has multiple phones and a call comes to them from a group, all of their phones will ring at the same time until they pick up, or until someone else picks up. When a group user is on a call, so let's say Michael took the first call that comes in, he's helping a customer, a second call comes into the group, Michael will hear a call waiting beep until one of his coworkers here picks up the call. But then, any changes, click on Save Changes. All right, groups can have extension numbers. Again, this is mostly for your internal staff to transfer calls to and from. However, if your customers know an extension number for a group, right, they can enter that from the virtual receptionist. Groups can't have their own phone numbers if you want them to, right? So you can add it from spare or buy new numbers. One thing to keep in mind for phone numbers on users and groups, those phone numbers will work 24 hours a day, right? It's not going to follow your your company hours or your main open hours, right? So whatever your open hours, after, lunch hours, etc., these phone numbers on users and groups won't pay attention to that. It will just send the calls to them. So that's relevant just because since you can have a person's personal cell phone as a device on their user, they can get calls at all times of the day. Right, groups can have features. First is ring back. So if this is enabled, this allows you to have a media file play right? You can either select one or upload a new file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Now, ringing back replaces the ringing sound, right? So when you make a call, you hear that, ringtone, right? Ring back replaces that when the calls are going to the group. But that means is that the system needs to hear that we're getting that ringtone from the devices that we're sending it to, right? So if for some reason, let's say you're having calls go in sequence, right? So, Michael first and then blah, 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 blah. If for some reason we're not getting that ring notification coming from Michael's phone, the ringback file won't play, right? It'll be silence for your inbound caller. So that's something to keep aware of. Typically, having a VoIP phone on one of the users will typically avoid having reduce any kind of instance of that problem. Next action, if you enable this, if no one answers the call, what do you want the system to do? It's a pull down. Whoops. Right, so you can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other auto attendants. You can send it to a call queue. You can send it to a specific phone, right? Specific device. You can send it to another ring group. You can send it to a specific user, or you can send it to a voicemail box. And then you would click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're letting your users make use of call forwarding, meaning they're not going to be at their normal desk phone, so they can send calls to their cell phone, for example. And then caller ID prepend. If you enable this, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phone's displays, again, to give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. And then you click on Save Changes. All right, numbers. This takes you to your numbers in use and shows the actual phone number and where it's going. You've got the little gear icon here, so again, you can update caller ID, E911, etc. for each of these phone numbers. You also have the spare numbers tab. If you want to get rid of a number, then you want to go to spare number, make sure it's in spare numbers, right? So it has to be unassigned. Then you put a little check mark in front of the number, right? And you see I've got the option to delete. So I click on delete. It says, are you sure? And now I have removed those numbers, so I've saved a little money on my phone bill. You have the option to buy numbers here, right? Local and toll-free, and it just adds them here as a spare number, so you can assign them later. You also have the option to port a number. This starts the port process. You just need to give it a name. Choose local, US local or toll-free. Click next, and then you need to upload a copy of your bill. The system will then ask you for what phone numbers you're porting, as well as the address associated with it, right, which should match what's on your bill. Then it gives you an opportunity to download a blank letter of agency, and then you can upload a completed and signed letter of agency. Now, the letter of agency, it has, asks you for like company information. That information should match what your current carrier has on file, right? So porting, you're moving a number, say from Comcast to VirtualPBX, right? So moving a phone number from one carrier to the next. The company information should match what the current carrier has on file in terms of the business name and the address and who should sign for it. It does need to be signed, right? Just simply typing in your name twice will get it rejected and cause a delay in your port. Local numbers, they can port in 1 business day or up to 2 to 3 weeks, right? 1 business day, typically I see that on a Google Voice number that's been unlocked, for example. Toll-free numbers usually take about 3 to 5 business days, and in both of those estimates assume that there's no issue or rejection for the port. The reasons why we would get a port rejected: address mismatch, right? Unauthorized user mismatch, end user mismatch. And that's about the extent that we're given. Sometimes we're given a little more information, like they'll say the street number is wrong. But normally it's address mismatch, which means we would forward that information to you, and then you want to confirm with your current carrier what they actually have on file for you. All right, let's cancel out of that. If for some reason when you upload the documents it doesn't complete, right, you should get an email right away when you click submit for the port request. The next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team saying, yes, we did get the documents. Here's what to expect about the porting process. If you don't get those emails, you can email porting directly. You can send the files directly to porting. You don't have to go through the portal to submit your port request. Next up, we've got users. Right, shows all your users on the account. Little blue suit icon means that's an admin. Right, system admin. Little gray person icon, that means that's just your standard user. Right, so any admin can be doing all the things we're talking about today. If you click on add user, just fill out the form, right? Enter their first and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So I can't reuse support@virtualpbx.com for 5 different users. That would only work for one person. You then create a password, and then you can give them an extension number. Now, in this case, I started this system with extension 1000, and it's telling me the next available in that series is 1021. I can delete this out, and I can enter in, 5220. All right. By default, create a voicemail box for this user is automatically checked. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I create this user, and then I add a Yealink phone to their user. Right? They can pick up the Yealink phone and dial *98. That logs them into their voicemail box. And the first time they do that, the system will prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box, and then to create a voicemail greeting. Right? If you ever delete that particular voicemail box, you're not able to reattach it in the same way to the user unless you delete the user and recreate the user. All right. Include in user directory. Right? You can, again, that's optional. You can always change your mind later. Send emails to an alternate address. So by default, when a user gets a voicemail, right, the system automatically emails them at the email address used for login, the notification that they got a voicemail, as well as an attachment that they can listen to. But if you click here in front of send emails to an alternate address and then enter in an email address, those voicemail messages would go to the secondary address, not to the one they use for login. This would also apply for like password resets and soft phone credentials. And then send credentials to the user, right? So when you click on create user, the system will send them an email saying, hey, welcome to Dash, here's your login information. If you just need to create one user, click on create user. If you need to add more people, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. You can change their name. If you click on change credentials, you can change their email address and their password. You also have the option right here. You can have the system send their password reset email. The change voicemail box PIN, again, you don't need to do this for your VoIP phone users because they can just log right in. But for your cell phone or landline users, you do need to create a 4-digit PIN number for them. Right, here's the option to send to an alternate address again, as well as the option for being in the user directory. Over here on the right, this is a pull down, so you can change a user to be an admin or an admin to a user. This is the time zone for the user. Right, you can just click a search for their major city. And that's so like their voicemail timestamps are correct for their time zone, right? If you have many people working from home. Next up, we've got the display language. This is how the language would display on the web pages. For this particular user, you've got English, French, German, and Russian are your options. Then we've got ringing timeout. This is how much time by default the system will send calls to a user's devices, and the default is 20 seconds. 20 seconds, plenty of time for a VoIP phone or a landline, may not be enough time to a cell phone. In terms of how PBX systems work, right, call comes in, we're sending it to the user. To a landline, for instance, right, we send the call to the landline company, they say we know exactly where that is, shunt the call right to it, starts ringing, right? Versus call that goes to a cell phone provider, we send it to the cell phone company, they say hold on a second, we need to find them first, right? Pings the cell phone towers, finds the cell phone, then the call goes through. It's that delay in terms of they have to find that cell phone is why you might need a longer ring duration here, or ringing timeout, to say like 45 seconds for a cell phone user. Users can have multiple extensions, or you can change their extensions, right? You would just add a new extension, enter the number, you're going to unassign the existing extension. Right? Users can have their own phone numbers, right? They can buy new numbers or add from spare. And again, this phone number, not going to pay attention to your hours of operation. So in this case, right, he's just going to a soft phone. So he can log out of his soft phone when he's not on duty. So that way, if calls come in, they're just going to go to his voicemail. Now, contrast that with like this person here, Kathy, right? She looks like she's got her home phone number here, right? So that could ring at 2 in the morning if she had her own phone number. Actually, oops, wrong person. In terms of the devices, you can add devices directly to a user, right? You can add from spare devices if you have devices that you're not currently using. Or you can add new, right? So you have the same option, oops, right? So you got SIP phone. I don't know if that's showing up properly. Let's do something here. All right, so I'm adding this, going to try to add a VirtualPBX soft phone. All right, so by default, again, it starts me off as using a third-party application. I can click on that, and I just need to give it a name, and then I click on Create Device, and then I click on Save Changes. Once I click on Save Changes, Angelica will get an email with her username and password for use with the VirtualPBX soft phone app, right? Then she can download it to either her iPhone or to her Windows PC, right? Or Android phone and Mac. And then she can log in, right? So the soft phone credentials are different than your Dash login credentials. One thing to keep in mind is the system currently is only allowing a particular email address to have one soft phone, right? So, oops. Right, so like this person here, Brandon, if he already has a VirtualPBX soft phone on his user, I can't add a second one to his user. Something to keep in mind. Another thing that you can do, or that I prefer, that's easier to do also for a user, is adding the web phone. Again, you can get that wireless, but you give it a name. Click on Create Device, and then you would click on Save Changes. The web phone, again, uses Chrome or Firefox. And when you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, it uses your dash login information, right? So it's going to ask for that same email address, password, and company name to get into webphone. All right, user features, excuse me. So caller ID number, that only comes into play for someone with a phone number. Because basically what you're saying when you turn it on is saying, hey, when I make outbound calls, use my personal phone number as the outbound caller ID. Call forwarding, you've got off, on, and failover mode. Now your users can turn call forwarding off and on their own. Right, they can do that via the user portal. But basically on is you choose, are you sending it to a desk phone or a mobile phone? And then you put +1 area code and phone number and click on Save Changes. Now this phone that you're adding as the forwarding device should not be a device that's already on the user, right? So like if I'm sending it to my cell phone, I don't want to have my cell phone as a device already on the user because you're already sending it to them, right? You're not forwarding at that point. It's one of your default devices, right? So forwarding is for using it to a phone that you don't use daily. Now, failover mode, this is for your VoIP phone users, right? The system can detect when a phone becomes unregistered. And when it does so, then it will go to the forwarding phone number you input here after you click on Save Changes. So basically, VoIP phone goes offline for whatever reasons, right? Dog ran by, cable got ripped out. Call comes into your user, it will then automatically forward to, say, your landline or your cell phone. So you can still take the call, help the customer, and then get your VoIP phone back online afterwards. Hot desking, this is a VoIP feature. You would just enter in like a 4-digit hot desk ID. If you make use of 4-digit extensions, I just say make the hot desk ID their extension number. Something they'll get memorized quickly. So what this is for is in a shared office environment where you might not be sitting at the same desk every day, right? So we have a lot of companies are going with a hybrid, work from home / work at the office situation. So they don't need desks for everybody, right? For every day of the week. So I come in on Tuesday, I sit at desk number 7, I pick up the VoIP phone, I hit *11, that's toggling on hot desking on that phone. It asks me for my hot desk ID, I enter that, and then the system tells me calls will now be sent to this device. Rest of my workday, while I'm sitting at desk number 7, if someone needs to get a hold of me, that phone will ring. End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12, that turns off hot desking. The next time I come into the office, let's say that's Friday, someone's already at desk number 7, right? I say hi to Abby as I walk by, and I sit at desk number 14, do the same thing, *11, my hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at desk number 14. Voicemail box, right? It's going to be active because you created a voicemail box when the user was created. And this is a default setup right here. So voicemail to email is enabled and attach voicemail to that email, right? So Aaron gets a voicemail, he gets an email saying, hey, here's information about the call, and there's an attachment that he can double click on and listen to the MP3 file on his computer. And then call that person back. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, if a person tries to leave a voicemail, they get that message saying voicemail box is full, please try again later. So if your staff is not good about deleting their voicemail boxes or deleting their voicemail messages, what you can do here is delete the messages from the database after that notification is sent out. So now when Aaron gets an email or gets a voicemail, right, he gets that email with the attachment, and then the system deletes the voicemail box or the voicemail from his voicemail box. So now his voicemail box will not get full in the future, and since he has that email, right, he has a record of all his voicemails. You notice here, I do have the option here to transcribe. That is a plan-specific feature. And if I enable it, that means the system will attempt to transcribe that voicemail message as part of the email that it sends to me. It will still include the attachment of the voicemail message itself, so I can listen to it. Basically, it depends on how well it can parse what that person was saying. and then you would click on Save Changes if you made any changes. Fax Box. Users can have their own fax boxes if you want them to. When you click Enable, your first choice is, are you using a phone number, right? So adding from spare or buying a new number, or you can assign it to an extension. Now, if you choose to assign an extension, that means this is an inbound fax box only, right? And actually this user will not be able to send faxes out. So in general, I recommend making use of a phone number. You can only add one phone number to a fax box. You're not able to buy multiple at once. But so let's go along this. Selecting an extension. Let's say I do 399. Right, so once I click save, so what happens is a person is trying to fax to Aaron. They have to call the main number. Right, they hear the main greeting. Then they have to hit 399 and then send fax. Right, or their fax machine has to allow them to enter pauses, right, like double star or double comma, and then 399. And you know, some fax machines can do that without issues. Some are a little bit more finicky about it. And also, email to fax services may not allow you to fax to an extension number. So that's why in general I say just have a phone number, so that way, you know, anyone can fax to a phone number, typically speaking, if they're making use of a fax machine or electronic fax services. But also for that outbound capability, even if the person doesn't need it initially, down the road, it gives them that flexibility. Because if you only have an extension number and they try to fax out, right, the system goes, oh, you have a fax box. I'm going to use those fax box settings for your outbound faxing. It grabs the extension number as the outbound caller ID. That's not a valid caller ID, so the fax will fail, even if you have a main fax box enabled. Conference Bridge. When you enable it for a user, the only thing an admin needs to do is create a conference room PIN number and then click Save Changes. Your users can change their PIN numbers on their own via their user portal. All right. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. This allows you to decide when those devices are run or in what order. Right, you got your total ring time up here, and you've got distribute. Now, actually, I should take this back a little bit. So what happens is when you first enable Follow Me calling, it looks like this. It's basically saying, okay, which devices are you going to have or make use of? Right, so you uncheck the ones you want to use, and then it'll start them both at 00, basically. Right, it'll look like that. So then you need to decide, okay, what am I going to do? Easiest thing to do is click Distribute. Again, just like in the groups, you can change the order and then click Distribute again. You can also change the time here. I don't know if it'll let me. Nope. But you can also change it so it doesn't go to the whole 120. You just want to avoid a gap in between the two devices. Do something like that, and then click on Save Changes. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music if you want them to. You would first enable this, and then upload .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte file. Click on the little up arrow icon, and then click on Save Changes. And this will supersede the music on hold you uploaded on the dashboard page. Customize call recording. When you click Enable, then you need to decide what kind of calls you are recording. Right? Inbound internal means coworker Bob called me. Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Outbound internal means I called coworker Bob. Outbound external means I called a customer back. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, your account has a storage capability. It's going to vary, that storage amount will vary depending on your plan. And then there's overage. If you go over that, you'd want to check either on the pricing page or with our account services team to verify how much storage you have and what that overage may be. All right, voicemail boxes. So the voicemail boxes page, you see many voicemail boxes here. Some have a name in this column. That means that was a user voicemail box is created at the same time as a user. These other ones were created manually. Right, so, and you can do that up here at the top. And the reason you'd create a manual voicemail box is for a ring group or an ACD queue, or you just wanted a standalone voicemail box for another purpose, right? Just not associated with a particular person, but you just give it a name, a voicemail box number, right? So it should not match an extension number or other voicemail box number, and then a PIN number, and then you would click on create voicemail box. For any voicemail box, you can click on the little wrench icon here, so you can always see their voicemail box number and their PIN number. But if you go to advanced, go to greeting and media. So especially for a manually created voicemail box, you either want to upload a media file to play in the greeting or use the basic settings to call in and record a greeting over the phone, right, for this voicemail box. The temporary file here, oops, exit that. Right, this is for like the vacation voicemail greeting, right? So this would if something is selected here, it supersedes the media file until you put the temporary file back to none. And then recipients. So your user voicemail boxes already have one recipient built in, right? For a manually created voicemail box, you would just click here under add recipient, you put an email address, and then click add. And you can clicking add to add multiple people. You can also do this to your user voicemail boxes. For instance, if the managers want to be getting copies of voicemails that go to their users. And then options. So for a manually created voicemail box, once you've uploaded a media file and set a recipient, you can go ahead and put the check mark here for already set up. And then you can look at some of these other settings. Again, by default, right, typically we're going to send the messages to an email address. You can do delete after notifications to avoid a voicemail box getting full. Right, you've got the option here to transcribe if that's a feature that's enabled on your account. The announce only mode, if you check this one, that means the voicemail box is only designed to give a message out, right? It's not going to allow any messages to be left on it. So for something like hours of operation or directions, that sort of thing. All right, advanced routing. This is where the feature called direct inward system access is placed. It's also referred to as DISA. This allows your cell phone and landline users to call into the system, log in, and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, instead of saying their cell phone number showing up as caller ID, your company number shows up as a caller ID. So you would go here, you would click enable, and by default, it generates a PIN number for you. You can edit settings. You can change the PIN number to something else. You can also give it an extension number and then click on Save Changes. So now, right, from my cell phone, I can call in to one of my phone numbers that goes to the virtual receptionist. I can enter in this extension number. The system will prompt me to enter the PIN number. Then I'll hear dial tone. I enter in the area code and phone number I'm reaching out to. And then, right, I call that person. And instead of my cell phone number showing up as a caller ID, right, it's this main company caller ID that shows up. Now, this for new accounts, this feature is not automatically enabled. This is something you'd have to request to have enabled. And the reason for that is it's possible someone could figure out your PIN number and the extension number and then make outbound calls on your account and you won't know about it immediately. Right? Usually for a lot of people that would be when they get their next bill and they're like, why is my bill, suddenly jacked up? And it's because and that's because someone could have figured all of this out and made a bunch of outbound calls on your account. Now, one way to keep track of your call activity is here under the call logs. We'll go to this month. right? So this little yellow arrow or orange arrow to the left, right? That's an outbound call. So I see here, call went out from this device to this particular phone number. If I scroll down here, I can see a green inbound call, right? Green arrow to the right came in, right? Here's the number it came from, here's the number they dialed, and here's the device it rang to. You got little fire hydrant icons here. This will create an email on your computer. It will include the technical details of this call. In the body of that email, I do strongly suggest typing in what was happening, right? So like you had bad audio quality or your phone didn't actually ring, right? We need those kind of, our support team will need those kinds of details so they can better find out what's going on. Like in this case, it says, okay, no answer, it rang for 20 seconds. That might be, you might want to increase your ring time. You can download this file. It's a .csv, right? So if you're good with spreadsheets, you could use that to sort the information in a way that's easier for you to read. The call logs you can access going back 12 months. So that's something to keep in mind if you need to have extensive record keeping. All right, feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these, but basically things you use on your phone to access different features. This one here, *97. All right, this you don't have to do from a VoIP phone, right? If you call into your main number from a cell phone, at the main greeting, if you hit *97, it will still work. So you can check a voicemail box. It will then prompt you for what voicemail box number and then the PIN number. So you can check multiple voicemail boxes that way. These feature codes are on the website, right, under support. And there's also a phone commands cheat sheet, which has all these, but also a brief description of what they do. All right, so we've just been on the dashboard. So next up is ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. It is an add-on feature on several plans. What you're looking at here are standard queues, which I forget what the pricing is. It's $30. It might be $15. Something to check on the pricing page or with our account services team. Not all plans are able to add ACD queues, so you may need to actually change your plan to be able to access queues, and then you have to pay for the add-on for the queues themselves. There's also Pro queues, right? Those, last I saw, started at $99. They have quite a bit more features, and I'll try to highlight those as we go through this. So you click on Add a New Queue. I'm just going to click on the little gear icon here for an existing queue. First, you give it a name, and then you have the choice of giving a queue a phone number or an extension number, right? Basically just a direct access point. Now, queues can be a menu option off your virtual receptionist, right, or your auto attendant. So there'll be multiple ways to get to a queue. And then you've got the routing strategy. It's a pull down. So most idle means whoever's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call that comes in the queue. There's also round robin, which will equalize out over time among your users. There is ring all, which means it rings everybody. That is actually not available on the pro queues. Then there's least calls, excuse me. Least amount of connected calls, right? So Bob and Mary are logged in the queue. Say Bob has 2 connected calls, Mary has 5. Under least calls, Bob gets the next call that comes in. There's also least offers, which is the combination of connected and missed calls, right? So in that scenario of Bob and Mary, let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, Mary's been offered 5. Under least offered, Mary gets the next call that comes in. Now then, let's say it's been a couple hours that Bob and Mary have been in the queue, and then Dylan logs in. Under least offers and least calls, he's getting the next call that comes in, right? Because he has least 0 for both. All right, hold treatment. You can upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. For the pro queues, you also have options of announcing their position in line, announcing their expected wait time. You can also have multiple media files play, right? So you can, start off with a media file, announce their wait in line, have media file 2 play, announce their expected wait time, have media file 3 play, etc. And that's under the pro queues. Queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time people can wait on hold in the queue, right? So I'm letting them hold for a minute. The queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of people who are already talking to my staff members, right? So if Bob and Mary are on calls, I can have 4 more people wait on hold. Timeout immediately if empty. If I have no staff members are logged in and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat them as if that caller already hit that 60-second timeout. Escalation queue. Basically, if all my staff members are busy, you can send the calls to a secondary queue. Obviously, that means you're paying for 2 queues at least. Escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 60 seconds elapses, where am I sending the call? So in this case, I'm sending them to a voicemail box. But again, you've got many options. You can click none, which would simply end the call. You can send it to one of your other auto attendants. You can send it to a specific phone. You can send it to a ring group. You can send it to the company directory. You can send it to a media file, which again, I would not recommend. And then send it to a voicemail box. Now, one thing to keep in mind. So even if you make use of escalation queues, whatever queue that call first came in, that's what the escalation call flow after timeout, that's the one it follows, right? So it came into this queue first. It's on its 3rd queue. Right, it still waits for that whole 60 seconds in terms of all the queues it's been in. Once that expires, it sends back to this original queue's voicemail box that I designated. Right, agent behavior, recovery time. Basically, after an agent is done with a call, this is how much time the system will wait before it offers them another call from this queue. Usually anywhere from 0 to 30 seconds is fairly typical. Then we've got force away on reject or missed. If you enable this, that means if an agent misses a call, right, or refuses to pick up a call, the system puts them in away mode. And that agent needs to mark themselves as ready again to be able to take calls. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. 20 is the default because in queues you can only take calls on cell phones currently. So 20 seconds is typically plenty of time. So then you would either click on create or save changes. Go ahead and cancel out of this. So once you have queues created, over here on the left, you would click on members. And this list of people here, these are all the people that are allowed to be in queues, right? They're not assigned to all of the queues. They're just the pool of people I can use to assign to the various queues. If I click manage members here at the top, now on the left are the people who are not in queues. On the right are the people who are. If I want to add someone in, I just click on their name and then click on add as members. You can add on multiple if you need to. Likewise, I could click on multiple people and remove them. And then I go back to the queues page. Now on an individual queue, you click on add agents, right? So this is from the list of available people, and then you just click and drag so you can add people in. Click on save changes. Once you have agents in, if you click on add managers, then you can select one of the agents, for instance, to make them a manager, and then click on save changes. For your staff members, right, they can log in via the website, and then they would click on ACD queues, then they would click on begin session, and now you see I'm logged into this queue. I am red because I'm currently away. It's up here. Now the little phone icon here, you can click on that so you can select the phone that they're going to use, right? It should be a VoIP phone. And then when they're ready to start taking calls, they click where it says away. You just mark yourself as ready, and now you're green, meaning you're ready to take calls. If a person has a little blue bar here, that means they're on an inbound call. If it's a yellow bar, that means they're on an external call, meaning they usually an outbound call. And then gold is they're on recovery time. And this is the manager view, right? So you have a little icon here where you can log an agent out. Agents themselves can only see their own status. They're not going to see everybody else logged in. In terms of the pro queues, there's an additional icon here for performance, so you can grab multiple agents and see how they're doing in comparison to each other. The pro queues also have the ability for agents to see the status of other agents. It's a particular setting within the queues. Also, managers, you can eavesdrop in a call that an agent is having. You can whisper to your agent, right, to give them pointers, or barge, basically take over the call. Right, blacklists. This is available on all plans. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are not allowing to connect to your system. Right, so you start by clicking Edit Blacklists. If you don't have a list, you would just click on Add. Otherwise, you can choose an existing list. Right, you give it the list a name, and then first decision, block anonymous. What that means is if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, and you turn this on, we're blocking the call. Right, they get busy tone. Now, if you want an anonymous call to get through, then you just turn this off. Then down here, you click on Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number for every number that you want to block from reaching your system. Right, you just add number. Right, enter the number, click Add again, and keep going. When you're done, you click on Save. You click on Back to Settings. And then you make sure your list is over here to the right under Selected, right? So anything under Selected, these lists are active, which means any phone number on them cannot connect to my system, right? Means they dial my main number, they get busy tone. They dial a user's phone number, they get busy tone, right? This is to block people from harassing you, or if it's your robo-dial number that keeps coming up, that sort of thing. Right, dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. First option down here, right? You would generally speaking create new rule. You give it a name, and then you choose a phone number to be displayed. This phone number has to be a number on your account. And in this case, I'm making use of a feature code, right? So my VoIP phone users, they hit *71. Then they dial the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, this 855 phone number becomes their outbound caller ID. Or you can set up a rule like this one here, where anyone on their VoIP phone, they dial a 408 phone number, it will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number instead. Next up, we have the fax manager. This allows you to see the fax status of your various users, both their inbound faxes and their outbound faxes. Again, this is a test account, so there isn't much to see. Actually, let me... Yeah, here we go. Here you see an outbound fax sent on the 22nd from this person's fax box. It went to this phone number. Or sorry, this was the outbound phone number. This is the phone number I sent to. The number of pages. I can download that file as well, see the technical details. The email to fax logs. If there's anything here on the far right under details, there'll be an eyeball icon. You'll want to click on that. That will give you some more information about why the fax failed. Usually it's something like invalid attachment, or someone used their personal email address instead of their company email address. Monitor. This is also a plan-specific feature. Basically allows you to see the status of your staff members, either by their username or by their devices. Right, you also have the option here to who's available and who's busy. Over here, it might be a little hard to see, but you can see active calls or active inbound calls. You also see the parked calls. If there's a parked call, you'll also see the parking spot number. Number manager included with everybody. This takes you to your spare numbers page, so you can buy numbers and port numbers, etc. The recording manager, this won't actually do anything here just because of its part of the limitation of the streaming software. It will either take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, so you can see your stored recordings. You log in with your Dash login credentials. Or if you've linked an AWS account to your Dash account, it will take you directly to that interface where you can see the recordings there. Reports would also open a new tab that takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. Reports is a plan-specific feature. It's advanced reporting. It allows you to create your own reports. It's a little bit, a lot more detailed than the call logs. If you're interested in this or want some more information, on our YouTube channel, under videos, our marketing team created a demo for the reports, so you can take a look at that. Otherwise, you would want to talk to our account services team to see if it's available in your plan, or if you need to change plans to get to it. Voicemails. This is your voicemail manager, so you can see any user's voicemail box. Right, so you can see, they have new messages. You can see the date and time that they came in on, what phone number and who called in, what phone number they dialed to, duration of the file. You can listen to the file and download it. Because you're viewing this as an admin, right? If you put a check mark in front of a voicemail, you can send it to a different voicemail box, right? So you're like, oh, nope, this one's the wrong person. Let me put it here. And then you also have the option to mark it as new, deleted, etc., or to delete it outright. Webhooks. This is linking Dash via APIs to other software. If you're interested in this, you're going to want to talk to our sales team. They have the information on that. You can also see examples of what we have done at developer.virtualpbx.com. So you can see what we've done. Like we've linked Dash to, say, Slack, for example, in several different ways. And then lastly, the user portal. Every user on your account has their own user portal, right? So you're not going to be able to get to a user-specific user portal, but in general, you have access to everything that they can view, like their voicemails, right? So again, their new messages. In this case, this user does not have delete after notification set up on his voicemail box. You can see the phone numbers that it came in from, the phone number they dialed, the duration. The user can play back the message. They can download the message, right? They can put a check mark here, but that means they can only mark it as listened, deleted, or new, right? They can't forward it to someone else. Call history. They can see their inbound and outbound call history. They can change the dates if they're looking for a specific call. Faxes would be there. You can see your fax manager. You can see this person sent a fax out on the 22nd from that phone number to this 831 number. The contact list, this is just within your Dash account, right? So users and their extension number, for example. This is not something your users can add to themselves, right? Your sales staff could not add their client list here. Conference tab. Over here to the right, this is where your users can update their moderator PIN as well as their participant PIN numbers. And then they have the option, do people join muted? Do people join deafened? As well as play entry and exit tones. While they're in a conference up here, right, they can hit the plus icon and they can invite another Dash user to their conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody, you can unmute everybody, you can end the call, right, end the conference. when you're actually in a conference, you can actually mute a specific person as well as kick a specific person. And then settings and devices. So this is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. They just put a check mark there and then enter the +1 area code and phone number that they're sending calls to. Right? You can also say, hey, ring my VoIP device. And these are their options. And then they would click save. And that is everything. So let's go back to the dashboard. All right. Haven't seen any questions pop up, and it looks like there aren't any that I missed. So, thank you for your time today. I will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to basically go over all of this again. Feel free to browse through our channel. Again, the marketing team does have a few feature-specific videos, including that advanced reporting demo. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.